As fighting continues in Ukraine, we bring you all the latest developments in the crisis. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Russia of committing war crimes for bombing the city of Kharkiv. Now, according to the city's mayor, at least 9 civilians have been killed, including 3 children, by Russian rocket attacks on Monday.
Російські сили сьогодні жорстоко обстріляли Харків з реактивної артилерії. Це однозначно воєнний злочин. Мирне місто, мирні житлові райони, жодного військового об'єкту. Десятки записів очевидців доводять, що це не окремий помилковий залп, а свідоме знищення людей. Росіяни знали, куди стріляють. За цей злочин точно буде трибунал. Міжнародний. Це порушення усіх конвенцій. Ніхто у світі не пробачить вам вбивство мирних українських людей.
Ukraine has also demanded that the West imposes a no-fly zone for Russian missiles, planes and helicopters in response to Russian shelling of the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv. These comments come after Zelensky said he was analyzing the results of Monday's talks between the Russian and Ukrainian delegations. No breakthrough came about in the meeting, and officials from both sides have gone back to their capitals for further consultations before a second round of negotiations. President Putin spoke to his French counterpart and leveled his conditions to ending his offensive against Ukraine. The first was the demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine, and the second was Western recognition of Russian sovereignty over the Crimean Peninsula. Meanwhile, Ukraine has said that the pace of Russian aggression has slowed. Satellite images have shown that Russian convoy was slowly but steadily making its way towards the capital of Kiev. The US has warned that it will impose more sanctions on Russia if Moscow continues to escalate its conflict with Ukraine, while noting that Russia so far has shown no signs of backing down. In New York, the 193-member United Nations General Assembly held a meeting on the crisis on Monday, ahead of a vote this week to isolate Russia. The draft resolution already has at least 80 co-sponsors, diplomats said on Monday. Over 100 countries are due to speak before the General Assembly votes.
It's raging across the country from air, land.
Well, for more on this, international affairs expert Kadira Pethiagoda is now joining us live from Melbourne. Kadira, welcome to WION. Now, Kadira, Putin seems not affected by the list of sanctions, but the oligarchs are. And now they are urging the president to end the war. It's now day 6 of the attack on Ukraine. What would it take for a ceasefire or even peace to prevail?
I think Putin would likely have predicted all of this, because I think the Biden administration flagged a lot of what they would do if Putin did invade, and there was a lot of discussions leading up to this. So he would have predicted this scenario, and there are power dynamics between Russian elites and Putin that are being worked out here as well, and I think he may have other domestic goals in this conflict as well, perhaps to weaken some of these elites, maybe even establish more control over the country. And I think it will be difficult to end this conflict without acceding to any of the significant Russian demands, because I think part of the core motivation of this was national pride, sort of rolling back the humiliation post the Soviet Union, and so he wouldn't want to, step backwards now at all.
Russia's economy is getting hammered by sanctions. Chinese state-owned financial institutions have been quietly distancing themselves from Russia's beleaguered economy. What would be the ramifications of isolating Russia internationally?
Obviously, there'll be economic pain for the people of Russia. I think the longer-term ramification is an interesting one, which is where it may actually play into Putin's what may indeed be his long-term agenda, which is to break Russia free of the Western financial networks and institutions. And he may not have had enough agreement internally in order to do this unilaterally But with these sanctions, he may get the impetus that he needs to sort of push that. And that's more of a long-term agenda. There's going to be a lot of pain for them in the short and medium term. But it sort of plays into this, this goal that Russia and China seem to have, which is to develop their own independent financial networks. And you've seen other countries sanctioned by the West, like Iran and Venezuela, also trying to establish something like that. So I think there's some there's multiple outcomes to this action by the West and these sanctions, and I think it'll be very interesting to see how it plays out.
It is being reported that Russian forces are advancing to Ukraine's capital of Kiev. What will be the social or political impact if Russia successfully seizes the capital?
I think you know it's telling that the troop movements and the war is still going on while the negotiations are taking place. So I think both sides are trying to change facts on the ground so they'll have a stronger negotiating position. I think that this is a very different military intervention to what, for example, the United States did in Iraq, because this is a neighboring country and the Russian people would have a sense of affinity with the Ukrainian people. So I think that would tie the military's hands to some degree in terms of the level of heavy firepower that they would use. So I think, but I think if they do take the capital, the sort of ultimate goal that they may have of regime change in Ukraine might become more possible. It might give impetus to domestic Ukrainian groups to try and dislodge the current government, and from the sort of more pro-Russian side of things in Ukraine. But then also the more far-right groups would likely be agitating as well, because they don't want President Zelensky to give any ground to the Russians. So I think he's in a very difficult position as well.
Finally, Kadira, no breakthroughs in talks. Humanitarian crisis is worsening by the day. The number of casualties is also rising. Where does Ukraine go from here? What happens next?
Yeah, I think the humanitarian crisis obviously is going to just keep increasing once the Russian troops, the longer they stay and try to pound the capital and try to take over the capital. So I think Ukraine's in a very dire situation, and I think it is very unpredictable how the country will look in the future, whether there will be a change of government and a more neutral government comes in, whether there will be an ongoing civil war, a resistance, even to the degree that there have been calls for no-fly zones, which obviously would tantamount to war between the West and Russia. So I think the situation is quite unpredictable at the moment.
Live from Melbourne, international affairs expert Kadira Pethiagoda, thank you very much for your time and for talking to WION today. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.